The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Six minutes past 12, Faster Mike. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say about whatever's on your mind, because we're open line till 1 today. Text 166177. WhatsApp 166177. But you may have to put 07624 in front and put us in your friends. But we're there anyway, aren't we? Email studio@manxradio.com or call 66 13 68. Well, the politicians are talking at the moment, but what they are saying is that Manx Care's got some very difficult decisions to make. Never quite say what they are, do they? Apparently, difficult decisions, choices, options, issues, policies. We'll find out. But one thing that is absolutely clear is that the dental waiting list has increased. It's almost 5,800. More than 300 people have been added to the list since July. The number of Manx residents waiting to join an NHS dentist list continues to increase. The latest figures from Manx Care show 5,779 people waiting to be added to a list at the end of September, more than 300 up compared to July. Now, those yet to be assigned to a dentist have had an average wait of over 400 days. Over a year. Some have been waiting longer, with a maximum waiting time of just over 1,600 days. That's 5 years. Now, Manx Care's Providers Board has listed the increase as a cause for concern. Well, it's nice to know. A cause for concern. I wonder whether this doesn't take into account the people who just can't be bothered to go on the list and just pay up, effectively privatising the system by taking out insurance for a dental practitioner. This is 500, said Andy, regarding the NHS dental waiting list, how many more thousand people is the government trying to encourage to move to the Isle of Man? And surely anybody who's going to come to the Isle of Man will pay attention to the fact that you just can't. I mean, bearing in mind in England, it's not much better. But really, do you think it's worth them saying to people who are aiming to come over here, if you're coming for a company, make sure they've got a dental plan in your salary package, or pay for your own dental insurance? Otherwise, well, there we are. Average time, 400 days. So if you come to live on the Isle of Man, work on the Isle of Man, move your family, if anybody gets in trouble in the first 400 days, it'll be the emergency dental service, and that's it. You won't get to know a dentist. They won't get to know you. So the board of Manx Care say it's a cause for concern. Anyway, if you're in the south of the Isle of Man, I'd be interested to know, and particularly if you've got children who use the play equipment in Castletown. Beth Cannon, the chair of Castletown Commissioners, says no special considerations are given to former politicians. She's having a pop at Richard Ronan and Tony Brown. Tony Brown, former chief minister, but according to Castletown Commissioners, he's just a former politician. Beth Cannon's the chair of Castletown Commissioners. She says 2 former MHKs were invited to meet about the closure of Market Square to vehicles during the winter, but they didn't show up. Tony Brown and Richard Ronan criticised Castletown Commissioners for its lack of consultation with residents and traders about the decision to pedestrianise Castletown Square. Beth Cannon, the chair, says she's sincerely grateful to residents, including former board members, who show ongoing interest in Castletown's affairs and regularly attend the monthly public meetings. She's also confirmed she won't be attending the public meeting at the end of the month and won't be giving special consideration to people who don't represent the town anymore. Tony Brown and Richard Ronan have called a meeting on the 28th of November at Morton Hall to discuss the decision made by the local authority. If you're in the south, particularly if you live in and around Castletown, I would like to know really what it means to you to have the market square open in the summer. Closed in the summer and open in the winter. Well, it's not going to be now because it's going to be closed to vehicles during the winter. Parking in Castletown, it gets a little parlous at times. Obviously, there's the car park by the old grammar school, but you have to squeeze through that little gap to get in there and witness the number of scrapes on the wall. You'll see how many people didn't quite make it. Is it a fuss about nothing, or have Mr. Ronan and Mr. Brown got a point about this? And do you think the commissioners really are up to speed with it? There's also that question of the play areas and dangerous and outdated equipment. Chrissy, who's a local resident, has been talking to Manx Radio. Castletown commissioners closed the children's park by the tennis courts last month to make some equipment safe and to undertake an assessment and an investigation. Again, if you have children and you use the play areas around Castletown, what's the state of them all? What do you think about it? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. We'd love to hear from you if you've got something to say. And lots of messages came in yesterday which we didn't quite get to, including lots about cannabis and the fact that they've approved a cannabis project that's going to take place at the Ronaldsway Industrial Estate, or the Ronaldsway Business Park as it's now being known as. Plans have been approved for this cultivation facility, the first of its kind on the Isle of Man. This is Grow Lab Organics, building its headquarters and production site on the Ronaldsway Business Park. Company is the first to be offered a conditional medicinal license to export on the Isle of Man since regulations were approved, well, it's 3+ years ago now, 2021. At the meeting of the planning committee yesterday, the plans were approved unanimously. The company told Manx Radio it hopes to have the facility up and running within a year.
It's been a long one. It's been understandably fraught with sort of misunderstandings, lots of people being slightly worried about what might unfold, and I think over time we've lent into those sort of concerns. We've tried to give as much information as transparently as possible, and I think everyone now seems to be right behind it.
A focus today on the green credentials, and you really had to argue the case that this wouldn't be a drain on resources, but there will be a connection to the national grid, won't there?
Absolutely, yeah. Understandably, people have wanted to know how we're going to use energy, make sure that we're using it appropriately, which is really important given the energy crisis that we face, and I think today was a great opportunity to tell our story and gain a bit more extra confidence.
Quickly run through the green energy credentials of the building itself. Is it passive? Is that the right word?
Passive's not necessarily the right word. Energy efficiently certainly is. We're sourcing green energy in the first instance, and then we're making sure that energy we use, we recirculate, we recycle as much as possible to both lower our operating costs but lower the amount of energy associated with the production of this cannabis product. So we've optimised the roof for solar photovoltaics. It's always producing our own energy has always been a huge thing for us, but we didn't want the application to be dependent on it. So the roof is ready, and once we start growing, we will eventually fit solar over time. We are already going to be capturing rainwater from the get-go and using air source heat pump technology to recycle all the waste heat back into cooling.
We've been told about a year from the moment of approval. Is that still the case?
Sure. So we've got a construction phase that we expect to be around about 12 months, and then we've got about a 6-month fit-out, commissioning and audit procedure before we're actually able to produce something commercially.
Co-founder and Chief Scientific Officer for Grow Labs Organics, Charlie Price, talking after the planning committee had approved the company's plans for a medicinal cannabis cultivation facility, first of its kind in the Isle of Man, and they reckon it's going to create upwards of 60 jobs, 90% of which will be for Isle of Man residents. Well, we're a bit late coming to it, aren't we? But we'll see what happens and see whether or not it works out. If we depended on green energy for the last 2 weeks, we would have been without any power. The lights would have gone out. No wind, no sunshine for 2 weeks. Well, I think some of the photovoltaics do work. They work without direct sunlight. But in terms of the wind, we have had some wind, just not much. And it would be nice to know if the people who are involved in the transition what they would have done. If anybody from Orsted or Wardell Armstrong could tell us what the plan would have been for the past 2 weeks in an ideal situation if Wardell Armstrong had put the wind turbines up, what would we have done? How short would we have been? How much would we have had to draw down from the one interconnector that we have? And obviously Orsted are bidding for the offshore wind farm with the interconnector from Preston to Gradle Glen. How much would we have had to draw down, and how much would it have cost? I know they always say it's subject to commercial confidentialities and contracts and forward contracts and wholesale prices. But really, somebody somewhere should know on the back of a fag packet, is it going to be a lot higher, a bit lower, or a lot lower? Thanks also to this message concerning the dentist, Nick, the Skip. Thank you, Nick, on 970. I know people who don't have a dentist, don't want one. They wait until they're in agony and they go to the emergency dentist. Well, at least you can see the emergency dentist and you can get there straight away, but it's a bit of a high-risk strategy just waiting for that. 753 says Castletown commissioners clearly have no notion what it's like to be elderly or disabled or wanting to remain independent, with the fact that they won't allow vehicles onto the town square during the winter. Now, is this because of some of that street furniture that's a bit, would have to be moved, or is there something behind this? If you live in and around Castletown, it will be nice to know what you think about this. More messages coming in. When we fix the climate, we will have less windy days. Nobody knows. Nobody quite knows what's going to happen. And a message in that just said, this is my take on drugs. It should be legal to use drugs, illegal to sell without a license, and give it heavier punishment for supplying, and even heavier punishment. Then users would give up their dealers, and dealers would give up on their suppliers. Just an idea, says Desmond. Well, it is, and we'll call you an idealist, Desmond, but really, organised crime is in charge of illegal drugs. Put it this way, there are no reputable wholesalers wholesaling illegal drugs. They're criminals. From top to bottom, from the users, from the people who create the drugs, wherever they're created around the world, and from right along the supply chain, they are drugs. It's basically a pyramid selling system. And that's what the pushers, the dealers, do. They get people involved, get them on drugs, and then get them selling. It's like Tupperware, but with cocaine and cannabis. And apologies if you're a Tupperware sales exec. But that's what they do. So until something changes regarding the status of drugs, then nothing's going to change. Anybody who buys drugs, and you may well be a user yourself, you may be listening now and thinking that, a few ounces of cannabis doesn't really matter here or there. And that's your choice. Not judging you, but the situation is that unless you're growing it yourself, you're buying off a criminal. And at the other end of those criminals, right at the start, is a Mr. Big, who is getting very, very rich on this. So how do you change that? While ever the drugs are sourced in parts around the world, in countries around the world where human life is cheap as chips, and while the criminals are willing to sacrifice human beings' lives along the way in pursuit of ill-gotten gains and fortunes, then that's the situation we have. There doesn't seem to be any political will to decriminalise recreational cannabis. I just wonder what your thoughts are with that. Bearing in mind the fact it is Safeguarding Week, and the Chief Constable is cracking down, very seriously cracking down on the drugs gangs and the families involved and the people who are pushing on the Isle of Man, and will continue to. It may be we'll need a bigger prison Let's go to the lines now. Jill's on. Hello, Jill.
Oh, hello, Andy. I've been banging on about the children's play areas, as you well know, for years. In fact, 4 years now. The last time I live in Douglas, the last time I went to the play area, my grandchild was 1.5. I've since been very ill, and it's lovely to get out with children. I know someone in Castletown, old, can't take their grandchildren to the park area anymore. Peel is park area is terrible as well. If they want 15,000 people to come and live here, they need to be people with no teeth and no small children under school age. There is nothing for little children. We can take our grandchildren out in the car to Silverdale, to Ramsey. It's lovely out in Ramsey. But I know young Polish girls, foreigners, even little Manx girls with 2 children under the age of 5. They don't have that luxury. They have nowhere to go. You've probably had children. Everyone's had children. You have to break up the day. You have to get out. And it's not always going out somewhere miles and miles and miles. Let these young mothers go somewhere to talk to other mothers.
Why do you think the commissioners, and I mean, I notice the Nobles Park playground could be in a lot better condition than it is. Some of the paint's peeling, some of the plastic is coming off. You just wonder why they don't see that as a priority, as you say, because the Chief Minister's pledge. Their pledge is to bring more people to the Isle of Man. How on earth are you going to impress people with crumbling playgrounds? I don't quite know.
Thank you. Exactly. And I went to the open day and talked to the architect who is going to build this whoop-de-whoop new play area, which we don't need. I said, all we need is what we had before. You're rubbing your hands together, I said to him. Young man, 40ish, not even Manx. Why can't we have a Manx young architect? The brilliant architects here on the island, young men, need a job. Rubbing his hands together, a lovely load of money coming in for him, which the island can't afford. We don't need a big ship that's going to get... If you put anything... I have gardens. If you put anything wooden out in a garden, no matter where it was made, in Germany, this is made, this wood. They don't have a sea near Munich, so they don't have the salt, paying loads of money. Anyway, that's getting into other territory. I went to talk to the MHKs at Ballacameen School about play areas. I got to talk to a civil servant, and it's all fallen on deaf ears. They want a new skateboard park. Look at the one in Nobles. It's tatty. They can't skate on it anymore. So what's going to happen to this one here?
I just wonder how much does it cost? How much do these things actually cost to do? Because you get the feeling, and I may be entirely wrong, but you get the feeling that we're going to end up overpaying for something that we didn't really want.
Like the one on in Douglas, we do not need it. Like you just mentioned, spruce up the skate park that is already there. We don't need a load of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old boys coming down into town with a skateboard. And we don't need a splash park. Little toddlers don't need water. Mothers have to clean them when they get home. We need, for mental health, we need children's park areas, and they need to be near to their home so that the mummies can go out with them on a lovely day like now and be sitting there chatting. They're lonely, Andy.
Well, that's I'm going to say that this is twofold. There's a twofold solution in that the kids like getting out, they socialise, they blow off some steam, they unwind, they get fresh air, they wear themselves out for their afternoon nap, but the mothers and sometimes fathers chat and they make contact with other people in the same position.
And another thing, rickets is rife again. Rickets. Imagine that. It's because it's lack of sunshine on the children's bodies. Vitamin D deficiency. It's just ridiculous. But I bet all these MHKs and civil servants, the people I talked to in Ballacameen School, and I shouldn't have bothered. I should have come home and read a book. I bet they've all got little play areas in their gardens at the back, and I bet their little friends bring their other friends. But there's lonely people here on this island. They desperately need somewhere 200 yards down the road. People say, "Oh, get on a bus." These little girls with 2 children, one in a pram and that, why should they have to? We're in a city. It's the city of Douglas, and we don't have one swing to go on for a child.
I'm trying to remember. There's that little play park on Westmoreland Road, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
The one at the end of Tynwell
Tiny.
Street. That's there, and that's, I mean, it's by 3 streets. It's hemmed in by 3 streets. So it has got fumes and what have you. But that's the only play park in the centre of Douglas, really, I can think of.
Not good enough.
There's
we're talking now about Castletown and Peel.
Yeah.
Have you seen Peel's playing area?
It's not pretty.
It beggars belief, for goodness sake. We're paying all this money on Ponzi parties on a boat that can't do anything, and fireworks. Every time I see fireworks, well, you sponsor the fireworks, so best keeping stum. But can they not use a bit of money that they use on fireworks twice a year? TT, bonfire night. We don't have a Houses of Parliament. Guido Fawkes didn't come here. Probably didn't even know where the Isle of Man was. So let's take some money, do Meals on Wheels again for the elderly, and just a swing. The women will congregate with their children. They're lonely. So please, MHKs, if anyone is listening, I've been asking now for 4 years. My little grandchildren are now just started school. Give these young mothers a break. Talking of mental health, start with young mothers with babies. Give them a play area. Castletown, Peel, Douglas. Do it.
Okay.
Do it now.
All right, Jill, we appreciate that. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Andy. Bye.
We're good to hear from you. 29 minutes past 12. Wilf's on now. Hi, Wilf.
Hi, I'm just ringing in because I'm fed up of hearing about wind turbines and the Green Party and all that crap. This is only my opinion. I don't think we should have any wind turbines on the land. That's desecrating the Isle of Man. We've had no wind for a week now. There wouldn't have been enough electricity to ride a bicycle lamp. A total failure. And for us, for turbines in the sea, destroying the vista of looking out to sea and destroying the fishing even more than what in Ramsey Bay. No. Not unless they're going to guarantee us free electricity. I've said this before, otherwise, no. I wouldn't have any of this caper.
Well, the moment, they're not even saying how much the electricity is going to cost if we have these onshore or offshore wind farms. They won't even say that.
Well, exactly. It's not going to be any cheaper because they're going to spend all this money making this thing and putting these windmills up and all that caper. The millions that they're spending on that could be used on, well, hospital stuff, nurses, doctors, whatever, something useful. Because and you can imagine the destruction of putting these things up and dragging them through the country to put up in the first place, and then we're not going to get any cheap electricity. What's the point? Anyway, that's enough of that. I'm fed up of listening to it.
I preferred it when you were talking about eels, Wilf.
Eh?
I preferred it when you were talking about eels.
Oh, right. Well, I don't know what more I can say about eels. But anyway, if our government all of a sudden got sensible, I wouldn't hold my breath over that. But if they got sensible and said, we're not going to waste any more millions on these stupid schemes, but we've signed up for this. Now, I don't know who signed the paper. Somebody in government must have done it. Maybe they'll own up and say, I signed it. But I certainly wouldn't have signed it. Now, somebody signed up and said, we're going to all go green and all the rest of it. But they didn't say what would happen if they all of a sudden got sensible and said, no, we're backing out. No, we're not going to do this. We're not going to waste all these millions. Are we going to get fined, or are they going to drop a bomb on us, or what?
No, I mean, I don't think we're under any threat if all this suddenly changed tomorrow. It's government policy, Wilf, to go net zero.
Ah, right. Well, we know the stupid government, but anyway, if as I say, if this all of a sudden we got some brains in there. Well, as I say, I wouldn't hold my breath, but we got some brains in there, and I said, no, this little rock in the middle of the sea, where probably hardly anybody in the world knows about it, what on earth difference is that going to make? We've spent all these millions, and is anybody going to take any notice of us? They don't even know where we are. It's total nonsense. All the big cities and countries, they're all belching black smoke out, burning with coal and all the rest of it. Now we got Mr. Trump in. He might help us out because he's not a green fella. He'll not put me. But anyway, there's another thing too. There's that lady who's just been on saying about the kids' playgrounds and things. We've got good playgrounds in Ramsey. Very good.
Well, the one in the Murrock's lovely.
Yes, we got the one in the Murrock, and we've got the one on May Hill. And we've got the skate park, of course, which I got the money for, by the way, which was £100,000, and I got it for free. Otherwise, the kids would never have had a skate park. We'd never have been able to save enough money only because we keep buying stupid things in our commissioners, you see. Like fake Christmas trees, things like that, you know. We'd only have to go out the road, out to Mike Gale's, out on the Derby Road, and we get one for the right price, proper one. Take your pick. He cut it down for you, and it's only a matter of 2-3 miles away, and we've got to get them through DEFA, costing hundreds of pounds, because we've got to get it through DEFA, and it's got to come from a government woods and delivered here and all this. The money that's actually wasted through government and wasted through the commissioners is just, makes me feel ill.
All right.
You know what I mean?
All right. Oh, good to hear from you, Wilf. Thanks for being with us today.
Okay.
Good to see you. Thanks for that. Hillary said, Andy, I'm just listening about the lack of dentists. Why doesn't the Isle of Man government give incentives to school leavers to go into dentistry? Then provide a scheme to ensure that once they qualify, they're returned to the Isle of Man. Then we could, in 7 years, have dentists. We could do this with a lot of industries. Thank you, Hillary. It has been mentioned before. It never really seems to go anywhere. Being a dentist is a very transferable skill. Hence the fact that lots of dentists go and work here, there and everywhere. That's the reason there are lots of South African and Greek dentists on the Isle of Man. Mouths are the same wherever you go in the world. It's just that we are desperately short of dentists. Now, they're short of them in the UK as well. So quite what we do about it. Any ideas? 432, if Grow Lab run out of space, I've got some room in my garden, says Simon. I've lived in Castletown all my life and never seen it so sad, says 786. I feel sorry for the few shops we have left. I bet they wonder why they're paying rates. Thank you, 786. Castle Town Commissioners clearly have no notion what it's like to be elderly or disabled, says 753. There isn't much wind at the moment, but if the UK is still producing 31% of their electricity with solar and wind, says Matty on 499. And a message in that just said, I'm wondering why there are so many empty houses in Williston. Why does it take so long to get them rented back out when empty? Also, I can't understand Douglas Corporation wanting to borrow $137,000 to do the footpath around the Manor Green field. I don't agree with spending this amount. I feel the money could go getting houses rented out faster to get the money back. Thank you from Sean in Douglas, dissatisfied rate-paying resident. We'll bring that up on Thursday because on Thursday, David Ashford, former Douglas councillor, and, of course, MHK, former minister, and Devon Watson, who is the chair of the Housing Board, Douglas Commission, councillors will be in talking about housing in Douglas, bearing in mind they've just put Lord Street flats up for sale. And David's on now. Hi, David. I think we've got... No, it's Eddie. Hi, Eddie. Sorry.
Oh, good day, Andy. Good day. It's been a lovely morning here down the south. There's been not a breath of wind. The sea is like a mirror at the moment, and the sun is just starting to come out. It's been hidden behind a haze all morning. The temperature this morning was quite low too, probably the lowest it's been this year, but in all the plethora of green talk about energy, there's many big words, lots of statistics and stuff like that, but it's the small words we need to take notice of. Words that seem sometimes purposely all but hidden by proponents trying to influence us. And those words, well, words like may, might, could, should. And Manx Utilities on Manx Radio, one of their adverts used the expression, the turbines could provide us with 40% of our electricity. I changed it slightly now, and they're a bit more optimistic, elaborating on could. It's now expected to. Well, this morning down here south, it could not. So what is expected to happen? Well, the word blackout rolls off the tongue easily as if it's sort of a minor inconvenience. It is not. No electricity means no anything. Everything we have, use, need or want is absolutely dependent on electrical power. Think about it. If you've got a gas heating boiler, well, it needs electricity to run it. It needs electricity to run the pump. Can't boil your kettle? Well, wouldn't be any point anyway because you can't get any water because the water pressure is maintained by electrical pumps. Shops with freezers and fridges. Chaos on the roads, no traffic lights. And that's just in daytime. At night, the chaos gets worse. I remember the blackouts we had in the UK in the 1970s. Maybe some other of your residents do. Well, renewable energy for me is a fantasy. But if the gangrenous greenies keep pushing us down that road, then there's a major disaster ready on its way. The only small word I want to hear ever used by them is will. Not may, not might, not should, not could, or expected to. The current electrical power situation on the Isle of Man will provide us with our energy needs. So, if it ain't broke, why do we need to mend it? Okay.
Why do you think, just a quick word though, Eddie, why do you think that so many, I mean, when we canvassed, when we did broadcasts up to the last election, every candidate was talking about green energy. They were like Robin Hood and his merry men, all clothed in green. The only person who stood up and said no was Stu Peters. But everybody else was in line, trotting away behind the net zero line, the renewable line, and the green line.
Well, I think that's because it's purely a vote-catching thing. There's no way that somebody in an election like that is going to stand and say things that are opposing to the vast majority. Now, the world is starting to wake up to all this, Andy. There are countries in the world now who have turned their back on all of this. And I'll give you an example. New Zealand, for instance. New Zealand's got itself into dire straits because of their green policy, brought in, I might add, by a socialist government. And they're now trying to rectify it all. They got in such a stupid state that the Greenies cancelled all the sort of fossil fuel things like their fuel generating plants, and they had a coal-powered fire stations, but they closed all the coal mines in New Zealand. So now suddenly they've got an energy crisis and they're having to import coal from Indonesia to run their power station. Now, they have a huge amount of hydro and wind as well, but it's not enough. And it's, you have to look at the examples around the world as to what's happening. And people are not being allowed to see all of this. There's a tremendous amount of bias in the media at the moment. Unbelievable amount of bias, particularly in mainstream media. And the general public just does not understand.
Okay, all right. Eddie,
I'm an electrical engineer, so I know what I'm talking about. All right?
All right.
Okay.
We appreciate Thank you. Electrical Eddie will call you. Thanks for calling today.
That'll do. Okay, cheers.
Good to hear from you. 18 minutes before 1. I found David now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just quickly, just to come back at people there regarding the future, and we need to look at things. Look at all the schools we've got on the island who are not used through the summer months and so forth. The post office now has got the green light. Stu Peters has given the green light for PV panels on the roof to make electricity because they bought all these vans that are electric, haven't they? The other issue is, too, that the National Sports Centre, who was involved in that, are going to put PV panels on the roof to either create electricity or supplement it, or they could shunt it actually into water as well. I've still got, and I'm looking through my bedroom window at 22 evacuating tubes, which are making me free hot water. Like you said earlier in some other programs there, you don't need bright sunshine, but you need some of it. And the main thing we need to do, Andy, is, and politicians are not picking it up, the power station is getting older all the time. Maybe we should get a new link in somewhere, because at the end of the day, if we can't buy stuff down the link we've already got, or it fails, we're up the cart, aren't we?
You bet. Okay. All right, David, thanks for calling today.
See ya.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. A note in from Kerry, who just said, it seems that our politicians are basically banking on the green future for the Isle of Man. However, this could be construed as putting us at risk, says Kerry. And the margin for error may be just too wide. We can't afford this. And really, are we just doing all this to show off to a lot of people who don't even care about us? As Eddie said, we're not an industrial nation. We don't have massive factories. We don't emit the amount of fossil the gases, the carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide that other jurisdictions do. The whole of the UK is responsible for 2% of worldwide emissions. So can you imagine how much we're responsible for? A tiny, tiny fraction. So we're heading towards the net zero. We're heading towards renewable energy. It is going to cost us a lot of money. At the moment, have you heard a politician give you a clear and present plus, an advantage, a way that this is going to make your life better in the future? Can you remember?
I find it hard to get a doctor's blood test appointment to fit around work.
With my mobility issues, it's difficult to get to a hospital for a blood test.
If you find it inconvenient to go for a blood test, or you need one fast, then contact Top Care Nursing, where a nurse will do your blood test at home or in your workplace. Proud to be an Isle of Man Award for Excellence winner. Just call 628 919 for a free consultation, or book online at topcarenursing.im.
blowing a hoolie out there.
Come in for a bravig by the fire. Just stocked up at Hearth. Never been so warm.
Who's that? Hearth?
Aye, they've got kiln-dried hardwood for me log burner, Colombian coal and smokeless ovals for the open fire, kindling and firelighters, all delivered. Great value too.
All goes up the chimney anyway, so I pay more. I'll be giving Hearth a call.
Check their website as well. Just order and they deliver.
For all your fire fuel needs, call Hearth on 560 577 or visit hearth.co.com.
For a merry Manx Christmas, give a gift that keeps on giving. From days out to gifts handmade on the Isle of Man. There's something for everyone at the Manx Museum and House of Mannin Heritage Shops, where every purchase helps care for our incredible island. Also available online at manxnationalheritage.im.
Foot or leg problems? Then contact Pop Podiatry, where all services are carried out by an HCPC registered and qualified podiatrist using the latest clinically backed treatments and devices, including the new Swiss Shockwave high-powered laser treatment for tendinopathies, plus nail surgery, verruca treatment, and more. Conveniently based at the Nunnery in Douglas, see what Pop Podiatry can do to help you. For your free assessment, book online today. Get back on your feet soon with poppodiatry.com.
Tonight here on Manx Radio 5:30, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Cobb, for Countryside.
I catch up with Sam Murray, ploughman at the Southern Vintage Engine and Tractor Club, along with judges and organiser Ori Mitchell.
I catch up with the three amigos. No, the three above-average auctioneers, Michael Kelly, Bush Carouche and Michael Taggart.
That's all in Countryside tonight here on Manx Radio at 5:30. And don't forget you can download or subscribe to the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. 12 minutes before. Well, lots of messages in today. My husband had an NHS dentist, but his dentist in the practice left the surgery. The surgery said they'd be in touch when a new dentist was hired. When checking with them, they kicked him off their list because he hadn't attended the dentist in over a year. But his dentist had gone, and he was told he could only attend in an emergency case until they hired a new dentist. Told him to add himself to the NHS dentist. It's unfair. This is 849. Thank you, 849, for that. New parks for children will give the vandals something to do at night, says Julian. Looking on the bright side, but I mean, it's for children, surely. I mean, there is a way of keeping idiots away from children's parks, surely, isn't there? I'm a grandmother, and I love Castletown Square being close to traffic. It's a great place to meet, enjoy the company of others. It's the heart of Castletown. Closing it all year round shouldn't make a difference to the economy of Castletown. There were only 12 parking spaces there anyway. We call it the Co-op car park, as that's generally how it was used. People popping into the Co-op and then home again. No time to walk around the town. I believe it's the high rents charged by landlords to the shops that have impacted on the closure of some shops. I wish those that have stood empty before the recent controversy of the square began would now have a reasonable rent and therefore reopen. The square is originally a marketplace, not a car park. That's 234. We're back to the renters again, aren't we? We're back to the rent for retail. Braddon's got a swing park and a slide and a skateboard park, says 537. How do GrowLab Organics get the go-ahead for a massive cannabis greenhouse, which naturally drives up climate change, which politicians are fixated on in its very nature? But the planning committee turned down every other housing project, which we're desperate for, even when they've got solar panels on the roof and heat pumps in the backyard, and they get turned down. Why is this? Thank you, R. Why do you think it is, R? The wind farms, the Isle of Man government, haven't got the bottle to do an online survey. We should do... why doesn't Manx Radio do an online survey? Do you want the wind turbines on the Isle of Man? Yes or no? Give us the answer. Well, 084, it's quite simple. You can do an online survey. If you want to, you start it, you stick it on social media and see what happens. I'm sure the climate change and green issues were voted were the main issues on the voting paper in the last election, so people have spoken. Good point. 238. Everybody was displaying their green credentials, and they all got voted, so they could possibly say they have a mandate. Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Did I hear that the cannabis farm would be using up 3 megawatts of energy? I think I saw in the paper.
I don't know exactly, but it's going to be using quite a lot. 3 megawatts?
Yeah, I think that's going to tie up one of the 3 or 4 wind turbines pretty much all the time then. And I think they have to do it at night as well, so the solar's not going to be too much. I think you had somebody on before saying that the wind is yielding 30-odd% of the energy in the UK. That is only accurate in a snapshot. If you actually go and look at the UK's new National Energy System Operator website at nesso.energy, they're saying since the 1st of November, solar has only given us 0.7% of our energy, of our electrical only needs, not heating, and wind is 10%. So the other 90% has had to come from gas or just the interconnector at 9 times the normal price.
Yeah, but the past 10 days it's been exceptional, hasn't it? It's really an exception normally this time of the year, and it's blowing a hoolie. Yeah,
but if you're trying to have a reasonably modern energy grid, you have to plan for any contingency, don't you?
Well, you would think so, yeah.
I mean, what happens if we have a storm like 1987 and we're reliant on turbines that blow down? And if we've got nothing else, how's that going to work? Because, these things are mechanical devices. I mean, the Hainan Island, they had typhoon-proof huge wind turbines on the coast. Half of them blew down with the last typhoon they had a few weeks ago.
Well, presumably the bright boffins, the clever people behind this new green future, have got all this factored in and will draw it out of a hat like a rabbit at the appropriate time, Julian.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the UK has been so close to blackouts recently. I mean, they were forced to pay £1,750 per unit or megawatt hour when they are usually costing somewhere in the region of £65. So you're talking big money when you start drawing down those interconnectors. And the FOI that I mentioned to you a little while ago, that one is 2.5 times more for the electricity that we will draw down the interconnector right now. So if we start getting dependent on that, like I said to you, 29p, think 75 to 90 if it's anything. If you get rid of your own generation abilities, you're going to be dependent on whatever's the going rate.
And what do you think? What do you think the e-gaming companies on the Isle of Man are the people? I mean, they're trying to pitch the Isle of Man as a data centre, to have data centres on the Isle of Man. What do you think they'll think if the price of electricity shoots up?
Well, I mean, you've got to be competitive. I mean, the competitors. The jurisdictions that offer really cheap electricity are Iceland, because of course they've got huge geothermal, so they can literally offer it for a couple of pence a kilowatt hour, and northern Sweden. So those are the 2 jurisdictions that you're kind of competing against, because with all the fibre optics that are flying around the world, it doesn't really matter where you'll have your servers. So if you're going to be competitive, you need to offer cheap electricity. And another place where there's an awful lot of computer servers that are servicing the likes of Amazon Cloud is in Istanbul. As I mentioned to you yesterday, I mean, the domestic price is 4 pence, and I think the commercial price is 7 pence.
Okay. Oh, we're nearly out of time, Julian. We've got to go. We'll talk soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Crossroads Isle of Man want to hear from you in our online carers survey. We want to find out what life is like for carers like you. If you provide unpaid care and support to a family member, friend or loved one who relies on you for their health and well-being, then please head to crossroadsiom.org and fill out our anonymous survey.
Crossroads Isle of Man, putting carers first.
Walk through the Christmas wonderland at Ramsey Garden Centre for a magical range of trees, decorations, unique gifts and much more, including the widest range of indoor and outdoor lights. Christmas at Ramsey Garden Centre, open 7 days a week.
Every day, Manx Petroleum is fueling the heartbeat of our island. Going with the flow, we keep homes warm and businesses running. 100% Manx owned and the largest family-run distributor, our customer services are at the heart of your community. And as the island's only provider of oil deliveries, boilers and tank installation services altogether, there's no need to shop around. Manx Petroleum, always here for you, because this island is our home too. Visit mp.im.
Your wish is granted. Because it's panto time at the Gaiety Theatre.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is. Stage Ed presents the classic panto Dick Whittington, specially adapted for the Isle of Man this Christmas. With fun for all the family, as Dick Whittington and his Manx cat Tommy go to find out if the streets really are paved with gold in Laxey. Can Tommy help Dick become the Lord Mayor of Laxey, or will Longtail King stop him? And more importantly, will Sarah the cook ever sort out her soggy bottoms? Book now at villagaiety.com or call the box office on 600 555. Sponsored by Zedra Isle of Man and supported by Manx Radio.
I have two children of primary school age, as 184. We use the parks all around the Isle of Man. I think it's a wonderful free resource for parents to get children outside. They should have more priority to be in the budget. The one at the tennis courts is a real hidden gem, but it's been looking quite sad in recent years. Polson Park isn't a great deal better, although the skate park and the BMX track are terrific. Port Heron's got some lovely equipment, but it's often broken, says 184. Any thoughts on children's play areas around the Isle of Man? Well, we're open line tomorrow, so get in touch. The answer phone 682-631, and thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
WINT.